Welcome to the beginning of another live Sangha. Sounds like our audio is working today, thankfully. Just before I set the intention for the space, Namaste Sky Guardian, I would like to begin with an invocation of the Gayatri Mantra. If you know it, you're more than welcome to join along with me. Om Bhurvaswaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. And before we await our further guests to arrive, allow me to set the intention of this being a positive space for us to come together, ideally in harmony, but making room for the spontaneity of the platform in which we're streaming and the age in which we're living, which is full of many, many different kinds of expressions. Let us have room for all of them as best as we can to make an inclusive space for each one of us, despite the differences which might exist in each of our independent journeys. May our interdependence, however, cross paths as we uplift each other, relate in one another's experience, and share positive sentiments. Those who are coming in, I trust that you are as well as you can be, and that you are affirmed that no matter what circumstances may be prevailing in life at this time for you, that you know that what you are doing is enough. That's right, dear Lexus. Welcome, by the way. We are just starting a live stream today, which is probably very late for many people in the continental US and the Americas in general. But the sun is rising in the east. I imagine many people from other continents are just waking up, and I'm sure we'll have our fair share of night owls here to uplift us. Hello, dear Nadine. I am not sure if I am able to understand French, but I'm grateful that you adore my live streams. Those cognates came through, and I'm happy that you find it fantastic. Much love. Oh no, Sky Guardian has made a revelation about my name. Hello, dear Chaos Cipher. Don't do it. Hello, Catpo. Hello, Sheila. Namaste, grateful human. Hello, dear Jay. Happy to have all of you here. And thank you, dear grateful human, for your tiny. Yippee! Welcome, my enlightened friend Echo Leaf. On your best behavior tonight, dear Chaos Cipher. Thank you, dear Echo Leaf, for your trio of roses. Mani Padme Hum. Now, I do concede, naturally there's going to be some mischief. Thank you, dear Jay, for wishing me a great day so far. I wish the same for you and everyone here. Hello, dear Isabella. Matthew, you're wondering if I know Ram Das. Actually, I had a funny first time becoming aware of him. Is I ended up not being able to fall asleep, so I thought I'd listen to some lecture on spirituality. So Ram Dass, of course, has quite wide array of lectures on YouTube. Anyway, I ended up selecting one of his videos to fall asleep to, and it was so engaging that I didn't fall asleep, and I was fascinated by who this person was. So I searched up his name, Ram Dass, after the lecture ended, and I discovered that he had passed away just perhaps during the lecture that I listened to, as all of the stories were just coming out about how he had passed away. So there's a good chance that my first time becoming aware of Ram Dass, that very same moment he was leaving his body, and that definitely gave me chills, and it mystified me even more. Now, thank you, dear Nadine, for your subscription. Never expected, is it, for anyone to pay any sort of contribution to these live streams. The greatest contribution is just your presence, and for that, I am grateful. Anything more than that is deeply humbling. Thank you. Merci. Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. And Sufi Siddhu, thank you for your quartet of roses. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. I'm happy to have you here. I do hope the space is a safe one with good energy. Indeed. You love Ram Dass, dear Jay. Well, you're not alone with that, that's for sure. Thank you for your good night wishes, dear Ro. Hello, dear Meena. It was a great soul indeed. A Mahatma, they call them in India, where Gandhi got his title from. Mahatma, great soul. Mahatma. Radhe Radhe, dear Hari. Welcome. Ina, you share this music is making you feel eepy. You feel like you're in a spa? Oh, good. Yes, may this be a spa for your spirit. And hello, dear Judah girl. Welcome, everyone. I am doing well. Thank you for asking, dear Angela. I would like to ask you all my question of the day if you are interested in participating. And this includes my dear viewers in the future who are hypothetically watching this live stream in its recorded form. Bigger comment section down there, but for the rest of us live here, as best as we can fit our answers, I'm wondering, what are some ways of letting go of less healthy desires? I believe there is room for desire. I would not make the extreme claim that all desires are necessarily impediments on the spiritual path. At the very least, there are some, however, that certainly could be made more healthy. So, what are some practices, some processes of letting go of those kinds? And thank you, dear Silent Storm, for the heart me you sent to. Hari Om Tat Sat. Your Judah girl, you had shared that you were just doing 6 minutes barefoot grass meditating. I love how you've been doing that. Yeah, you've been telling me. I like that. Thank you, dear Sufi Siddhu. Welcome, the only S. Guardian, you still drank coffee today. One of the things that maybe you're thinking about transcending at some point. Meena, you can answer this quite well, as you were a many-year cigarette smoker and, quit 3 years. That's amazing. I know that smoking can be one of the most challenging things to quit. And you are an example of how it's very possible. Do share. You share that you had to let go of the identity you had created around it. Oh, what a powerful answer in such a short amount of words. To let go of the identity you had created around it. Wow. I guess my follow-up question for you, dear Mina, is, if you're comfortable sharing, what is that identity? And how did you go about realizing that you didn't want to express yourself in that way or associate with those aspects anymore? Do share, if you are comfortable, of course. Dr. Ginny, you give a very enlightening 3-word answer too, which is finding healthy desires. Yeah. Starting off slowly, shares Angela, or you can just go cold turkey, which is far more difficult. Certainly depends on the person and the desire, but it's good to have both options available. I think so. Whatever is the course of least resistance. If it's just easier to be done with all at once, or if it's easier to take it slowly, you know yourself better than I do, that's for sure. Thank you, dear Isabella, for the trio of roses you had shared. 1 for the sun, 1 for the moon, and 1 for our earth. Om Sum Suryaya Namaha. Dr. Ginny, you add to focus on gratitude for really tiny things. I like your connection with gratitude, finding a kind of fulfillment with what already is. Thus, we need not seek for that which is beyond. Dear Hari, you share that one way is to do karma yoga. Karma yoga really helped me too. Just engaging in meaningful action, karma. Finding a kind of union in the activity of yoga. Yes. Hello, dear Real. If I am a leader, then you are too. As we are all leaders, especially for the next generation. So we have to be good role models, each one of us. Dear Isabella, you share by forming healthy connections. Yeah. Having a support group, especially if our desire is an addiction, for example, can be especially helpful. My experience. Dear Jay, you share that to let go of unhealthy desires, one must accept that they all have their need within. Be at peace. I like that. Yeah, there is a cause. There is some necessary expression that we're finding through this, and therefore, how can we attend to that need in a different way? I suppose the logic would follow. Linda, thank you for that rose a few minutes ago too. Rama Rama. Hello, dear John. Dear Matthew, you share meditate, yoga, or any spiritual practice really. Yeah, and hey look, Sky Guardian. There's that sticker you wanted being used. Thank you, dear Matthew. Of Swami Narayan in some asana. Star Branch, you share for you it was finding purpose in service and community. It's interesting how when we are engaging in a purposeful life surrounded by people we can confide or relate in, that we do not seek for fulfillment in other ways. Dear Bear of the Pooh, I like your answer too. You share learning to walk with your demons because you can't let go. There's absolutely a lot of truth in that, and the acceptance of where we're at and learning to work with what we've got. Hi Guardian G, you add that Swami Taratmananda Ji says it's about transforming binding desires to non-binding desires. That's a great category. Non-binding desires. And Sufi Sidhu, thank you for your septet of roses. Hari Om Tat Sat. And Angela too, thank you for your rose. Hare Krishna. The only S you share first, understand there is nothing wrong with you and accept that you actually love the desire. Oh, how powerful is that? Yeah. Destigmatization. Where we are is where we are. This is something that we do enjoy in the moment. We can't deny that. And we go from there, being curious about why that is. Angela, you share. You agree with the idea of replacing an unhealthy desire with a healthy one. Sky Guardian, you give an example. So you can have the desire for coffee, but you can convert it to non-binding so that you don't suffer when it's not available. That sounds a lot like what Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita, to make peace with the outcome, even if it's unfavorable. Dear Judah girl, you share that letting go of less healthy desires to you is being more spiritual and to help others you live with. Help your positive energy attract others. Oh, I see. I'm just trying to make sense of the grammar. You live to help, and your positivity attracts others. I like how you've seen what is made possible by this practice. Crossfires, you give the ability for people to just quit cold turkey. Even that's possible. By Guardian, you add that Sri Krishna says, Asanga Shastra, the acts of detachment. Yes, cut them asunder. Namaste, Christine. I am a little behind in the present moment of comments, about 20 messages from the present. I'll get there. Just going through all of your comments one by one for our question of the day. Thank you, Awaken Haven, for the trio of roses you sent to. Om Dum Durgai Namaha. Mina, you shared that as a smoker, your identity was, I'm a smoker. This is to quote-unquote relax. This is what I do when I'm quote-unquote bored or I'm a quote-unquote rebel. Yeah. And that identity you found was something that you didn't resonate with anymore. Dear Dr. Ginny, you share that when you quit smoking 15 years ago, you bought yourself roses every week with the money you saved. I like that answer because it points to another part of desires, is that they take up some of our resources like money, time, or just energy in general, and you can use that to put towards something like roses, which is lovely. And Ryan, you share that if you think if you're doing better in life or getting out of the bad place you're in, gotta stay calm and don't let your ego go high. I like that point. Yeah. Otherwise, we may crash back down into our old ways. Would you like a support group, dear Angela, that may be helpful? Ryan, you rephrase that. If you're doing better in life, stay calm and keep the ego low. This will keep you in this place. I like that too. Dear Tizu, you had asked about the 7 chakras and their respective frequencies. How might you meditate with them? I'd recommend the book that we read last time called The Hidden Power in Humans by, if I can remember his name, Parmarth Swami Maheshwarananda. The Hidden Power in Humans. It's a great book, and the entirety of it is now available for free on my YouTube channel, since I read through each section and posted the reading. Much love, dear Sierra. Dear Awaken Haven, you're looking for insight on how to be still and quiet without your mind running. Now there is boundless possibilities with how this sentence began. But the moment we added without our mind running, then it became impossible, because our mind runs. Just like a computer is running, its duty is to run. It is not the quantity of thoughts which makes one either still and quiet or not. It's the quality of thoughts. In the same way, it's not how much a computer is processing that determines whether it is useful. It is exactly what you are using it for that makes it purposeful. So instead of trying to quit the mind of its duty of thought, shift one's thoughts to become more positive, that outline what's possible, and then you will be still and quiet even when the mind is running. Now back to the question of the day. Dear Gemma Gemma Gemma, you share the only way you've ever found is to find new desires that you prefer. Welcome, dear Rhiannon and Strings. Hello, dear Tanya. You ask, can you be spiritual without believing in a God? Absolutely. Yes. Like the Buddhists, they are very spiritual but non-theistic. They say there's better questions to ask than what my relationship is to a creator. Better questions for a Buddhist might be, how can I serve others, be compassionate? How can I learn to love the unity of life within everyone? And ultimately, that's the same concept as a God, the unity within everyone. It's just that word can have so many different meanings that, for example, Buddhists just put it aside and speak of it in the practical sense. Welcome, dear Marlin. Actually, you are not that late. Rather, I am. But I'm sorry to hear about your dear cat having conjunctivitis. I've never heard of that, but it sounds like a conjunction of various different things, and I hope that you provide a conjunction of love and pets and food and forehead kisses and lots of time for your dear cat to rest. Okay, I am going to have to pause our question of the day for now. If I hadn't read your answer out loud, do forgive me. I think we were getting more answers than I had the speed to go through, so I have to come back to the present moment at some point. But everyone is welcome to continue to share their insights of this question, and I'm happy to receive your thoughts still. Dear Kev, thank you for the rose and heart me that you sent to Hari Om Tat Sat. And I appreciate that we got a chance to explore this question of the day together. Oh, thank you. Angela, you share that you think conjunctivitis is pink eye. Oh, how interesting. I wonder what gives it that formal name. Hello, dear Angel. And Dim Sum Tonic, welcome. Ryan, you had shared as well that being happy for your friends and family's success will help you become more healthy, selfless, as too much concern for oneself may be overwhelming. So look towards wanting good for others. I love how simple you put that, how relieving it is to pay attention to the well-being of others than be overwhelmed by our own. Thank you, dear Brianna. To have a wonderful teacher like yourself here. And Neon Jello Pack, you had shared to be kind to yourself during setbacks and recognize that overcoming unhealthy desires is a journey. Yes. Such wonderful answers, everyone. I will add maybe like a mix of everyone's answers so far, that yes, it is a process and we cannot expect ourselves to transcend it overnight, although having the ability to just let go of it all at once can be really useful depending on what it is and the person. Nonetheless, you may experience setbacks, you may end up relapsing into old habits, and that is allowed. Certainly no one expects us to be perfect in our journey. Just the fact that we are making an effort is who we want to be, isn't it? It's not that we want to be some version of ourselves that's in the future. We want to be the version of ourselves now that's becoming healthier in each passing day, and that is enough. Namaste. Vin of York, you lost some letters. What happened? You lost your C and you lost your E. Is it because you're no longer in the current era? You've gone way back before CE into the BCE, the before CE. And it's so lovely. I love how so many people shared kind wishes for your young dear cat, Marlin. Dear Kiwi, you ask, should you move out of your country for a change of pace? Well, if you want a change of pace, that's certainly one way to accomplish it. But your life is your journey, and that's something that you have all the freedom to explore yourself. I certainly would recommend that when someone is ready, they leave home to discover other walks of life so that we can live a more inclusive one, taking into consideration the perspectives of many different people all around the world. If a change of pace is all that you need, consider switching up your routine. Maybe look into kinds of hobbies that you never thought to explore before. Consider studying something that you hadn't studied, or engaging in a new spiritual practice that can give meaning to your life. Rather than trying to change what's on the outside to accommodate what's on the inside, how can we adapt what's happening within to accommodate whatever happens on the outside? Thank you, dear Echo Leaf, for your trio of roses. Namo Buddhaya. You're the guy from TikTok, and I like what you said earlier about how reducing stress helps reduce unhealthy desires. Does the version of yourself in the future exist now with the current version of yourself? Well, we don't know what exists beyond this moment, but all that is possible in the future certainly stems from what we can do now. And therefore, this moment is a seed, or a whole garden of seeds, rather. And depending on what we water now, we will experience a different kind of garden later. Do you want your garden to be all prickly? If so, keep watering the cactuses. If you want it to be full of wonderful fragrance, keep watering the flowers. If you want your garden to be homogeneous, just keep watering that same thing. If you want it to be diverse, pardon me, water each thing one by one, depending on the kind of future we want. We must change our behaviors now. But regardless of what exists awaiting us, all we have to do is be here now to attend to the prerequisites, the preliminaries, and all else that is required. And water yourself too, shares Kev. Of course, you are the most beautiful plant in the garden. Thank you, dear Colette, for your pair of roses. Radhe, Radhe. Namaste, dear Mahina and Shakira. Thank you for your dozen roses, Mahina, and heart me and rose from Shakira. I love that, Flor. You share that you've made so many mistakes so far in life, but because of that, you found spirituality and it gave you purpose. You want to be the change you want to see in the world. I love that. And Echo Leaf shares, let it be. Now I have a fun show and tell for you all. If you want to explore a video with me, this one's extra special. Some of you know by now that I like to dedicate this space, well, of course, to include you, but especially in the form of various things that are important to you. There's a show and tell section. One of a mutual friend of Sky Guardian and I's, Neil Bakshi, an angel medium who once had me on his show, 5 Great Questions. He had sent us his TEDx personally for us to watch together, which is quite an exclusive experience. His TEDx talk is quite short, just 8 minutes, I believe, and it's titled, "Your Suitcase Can Cure an Epidemic." He writes that it's about how travel retreats can be the cure for the epidemic of loneliness, and he would be so grateful for us to share it here on our Sangha. I think I had a title to go along with that. Allow me to just bring it up. First, I have to minimize our background music so we can make sure that we hear dear Neil's talk. It's very fun. It just got posted on YouTube and it only has 500 views so far. I love the talent of our Sangis. Incredible stuff. Oh, that was... that wasn't it. Here it is. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned, I'll say it again just in case. Neil Bakshi is an angel medium.
While there's no vaccine for this epidemic, packing your suitcase might just hold the cure. In 2023, the US Surgeon General published an urgent public health advisory requiring immediate action for the epidemic of loneliness. It's as dangerous as smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day, linked to a 50% increased risk of dementia, and affects half of all Americans. Whether it's a breakup, death of a loved one, or lack of close and meaningful friendships, loneliness can come in many forms. For me, it was the sudden and unexpected death of my mom. Yet after traveling through 50 countries across all 7 continents in my lifetime, I've come to discover one of the most unconventional and uncomfortable solutions to our nation's most acute public health crisis. But for a moment, let's put the suitcase down and pick the briefcase up. The summer morning sun reflects off your freshly shined shoes as you heel-toe over the New York City sidewalk. Your brisk pace whisks you into the headquarters of Goldman Sachs, where you grab your morning coffee and sit down at your desk. You pause for a moment to collect yourself before logging in. Wow, a vice president in investment banking at Goldman Sachs, you think to yourself. I've made it. Or have I? 80 to 100-hour work weeks. No time to go on a date, let alone take a vacation. With each promotion, the promise of a more balanced life comes and goes. Nearly a decade on Wall Street and still no change. This was the world I found myself in. Early in my career, after a few years with no meaningful time off, I decided to organize a mini brunch getaway with 6 other junior bankers, while our bosses were across the country at a conference. Hey, while the bosses are away, the juniors shall play. After organizing a couple of these renegade retreat experiences, I learned that the nearly 700 meals and over 50,000 messages I shared with these colleagues in a single year carried a deeper, heartfelt resonance and genuine human connection behind them. If retreats could turn work friends into friend friends, what could they do for seeming strangers outside the office? For over 70 years, psychology has taught us that a sense of belonging is a fundamental human need, as essential as food, water, and shelter. However, what I never learned was how to navigate life when my greatest sense of human belonging suddenly disappeared. The morning sun was shining into my Manhattan studio apartment when I got the news. My sister's worried and frantic voice immediately came through the phone. "Something happened during Mom's surgery," she said, "and she's not waking up." Earlier that morning, my mom went in for a 30-minute outpatient thumb surgery to fix a partially torn ligament. Unable to be aroused after the surgery, she was intubated and rushed to the ER. In the ICU, my mom spent nearly 3 weeks on life support before passing on. Out of 0 to 100 on my fear scale, this was 111. Less than a month after my 28th birthday, I found myself writing my mom's eulogy and carrying her casket to the crematorium, all after an elective thumb procedure. If there was ever a time to need a retreat, this felt like it was it. In the wake of my mom's death, I began to ask myself life's existential questions. Who am I? What is my purpose here? If I was suddenly gone tomorrow, would I be fulfilled with the life I lived? And most importantly, what do I really want out of life? When was the last time you asked yourself these questions? In the months that followed, I returned to my meditation practice, which began at the age of 5. I grew up in a spiritual family, following Paramahansa Yogananda's path of self-realization fellowship and attending weekly group meditation services. However, I veered away from my roots as I focused everything on my career and making lots and lots of money. Yet for the first time in over 23 years, I felt an inner calling during meditation like never before. Every day for 3 straight months, the message was simple. You need to help people. But I thought I was helping people as a Goldman Sachs banker. Well, helping rich people get richer. This calling was different, though. It was a calling to be of service to a humanity far beyond my microcosm of high finance. Over the course of 2021 and beyond, I was guided by this inner calling to learn dozens of new things that interested me and to help where I was called. I became certified in modalities ranging from life coaching to breath work and body work. Amidst closing over $100 billion of transactions as an investment banker, the level of fulfillment I received from helping people along their healing journey was unlike anything I ever experienced. So, I used my banker brain to calculate my financial runway, then left the prospects of million-dollar salaries and managing director titles behind. In a few years since receiving this inner calling, I traveled to well over 100 cities across 15 countries and 5 continents. I learned from indigenous tribes in the Peruvian Amazon, gave back to women's collectives in Morocco, and explored ancient ruins from Egypt to Mexico. Along the way, I attended more than 15 retreats to aid in my personal healing journey. These unique experiences safely expanded my comfort zone and showed me that people and places are 2 of the most important teachers and healers in my life. Today, science is beginning to show the very real health benefits of traveling. Until relatively recently, scientists believed that the human brain was unchangeable and only declined with age. However, over 6 decades of neurological research has shown that if the body is in an enriched environment, like when you are traveling to a new place, the brain can form new synaptic connections and grow. Traveling has also been associated with a decreased risk of both heart disease and depression, while simultaneously enhancing creativity and bringing greater satisfaction than material purchases. But for the nearly 25% of Americans who have never left the country, traveling can feel downright terrifying. This is where trusted guides, expertly designed itineraries, and a group experience through travel retreats can be the real game changer. No trip to Egypt is complete without a visit to one of the most awe-inspiring world wonders. But this isn't any cookie-cutter experience. The full moon shines on the Great Pyramid just before dawn, on a desolate plateau free of tourists. Inside the king's chamber, you're guided through a private meditation and sound activation with an intimate community of like-minded adventurers. As vibrations ripple through every cell of your body inside this ancient resonance chamber, a sense of regeneration and rejuvenation brings peace and healing to your mind and body. Whether exploring archaeological sites or savoring local cuisine, the people and community aspect of travel retreats unlocks new doors of business networking, collaboration, lifelong friendship, and even love. I have learned as an organizer of retreats and experiences that external travel awakens internal realization. Through travel retreats, you not only heal loneliness, but you begin to create transformative communities rooted in genuine human connection and shared experience. life is often easier than we think it is, if maybe a little bit uncomfortable to take the first step. The solution to America's epidemic of loneliness is no different, and packing your suitcase might just hold the cure.
Thank you for listening, everyone. Oh. Apologies, 1 second.
By show of
There we are. Thank you again, dear Sky Guardian, for suggesting that Neil send that in for us to explore together. And big thanks to Neil for allowing us to watch his wonderful TEDx talk on the genuine and deep practicality on a physiological and a spiritual level of traveling, to go outside one's comfort zone to experience the rich tapestry of cultures around the world. I think that is so needed in many of our lives. And what an inspiring journey from an investment banker to experiencing the loss and grief of the untimely death of his mother, and finally to finding the greatest purpose in life by helping people, as he finds teachers and healers to be some of the most necessary in our society. Wonderful. And thank you all for exploring this together. And if anyone else wants to ever share something on our show and tell, please feel free to check out my show and tell application form in the link tree in my bio. Certainly doesn't have to be a TEDx talk, but even if it's a little poem you've written, if it's a tree that you planted that's now grown, if it's a little song you're working on, or an inspiring story of you and your mother, whatever it is, please allow me the opportunity to be able to share your story here to whatever audience I can. Thank you, Tatvamasi, for your quintet of roses too. Jai Nisargadatta Maharaj. Guy Sardachak, thank you for your Heart Me and Team bracelet. I'm laughing at my absence of knowing how to properly pronounce your name, but I appreciate your unexpected gifts as always. Ram Ram. And dear Jane, thank you for your rose. Hare Krishna, and Gule for your rose too. Om Brahm Bhairvai Namo Namaha. Hope you enjoyed that, everyone. TikToker, you share that you have some paintings posted if anyone is interested. Thank you for sharing. I'm sure they are lovely. Bad Shalom, dear finger legs. That's true, Pipe. Travel is usually a paywall that many of us can't afford. So in little ways, may we go outside of our comfort zone, even if it's to check out the neighborhood next door, or the part of town we hardly visit, or maybe the next town over, or digitally. Let us explore through the wonders of the internet, documentaries, and various videos that are available online for us to appreciate and virtually experience our globe. Dear Indigo, thank you for your heart meme. Om Kring Kalikai Namah. And Vavi, thank you for your paper crane too. Did I just thank you for the same thing? Now I'm getting confused with my gifts. Thank you, dear baby, for your paper crane. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. Cody Jane, thank you for your heart me. Radhe Radhe. And Gule, thank you for another rose, my friend. And dear Echo Leaf, for your trio of roses. Om Mani Padme Hum. The Angelo Pack, you share that so many museums are accessible through virtual reality, and it's incredible. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's true, isn't it? I like that possibility. Thank you for your presence, dear Olala. Jennifer, you're wondering why my name is Yam? Because just add an L at the front and it's L-Y-A-M, Liam. That's how my mom spelled my name. Well, not just my mom, that's how everyone spells my name, but, you know, as chosen by my parents. And, therefore Yam is 3/4 of my given name. Indigo, you share that virtual museum dates are awesome. I love that. You know, there's so many creative ways which we can connect virtually. Thank you, dear Echo Leaf. Indigo, thank you for your ice cream cone too. Om Brahm Bhairvaya Namo Namaha. And yes, when physical projection is not possible to other places, maybe we can astral project there. It's cheaper. Yes, Sky Guardian, we can do another reading. Thank you, dear Arlene, for the rose you shared too. Om Namah Shivaya. And Angela, thank you for your finger heart. Om Namo Hanumade. No, dear Renvox, I haven't done much traveling at all, really. Speaking of financial barriers, it is something that my family has had limited opportunities to. But that's changing. Lots of change is happening in my family's and I's life, so I imagine I shall be exploring the world as soon as I can. Thank you, Kiana, for your heart me as well. Ram Ram. So where did we leave off? Our dear author, Sādhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, she has had an incredible spiritual experience all of a sudden in Rishikesh as her and her husband had went to India. She was more so along for the ride because her husband was the one going on a bit of a spiritual pilgrimage, but all of a sudden, when she dipped into the Ganga, one of the holy rivers of India, an incredible spiritual vision of the Divine Mother overtook her, and she had absolutely no inclination of having any sort of spiritual experience here. That was our last chapter. Do check that out if you'd like to hear about it. Now we are beginning the 7th chapter. You must stay. The next days run into each other timelessly, rushing at the first light of day down to the river worshipped as the mother, being pulled at night back into the sparse, green-hued hotel room with flickering blue tube lights, days of meditating on the banks of the river. I would not, however, have used the word meditating, for I had no semantic framework to put any of this in. One afternoon, as I walked up the steps from Ganga toward our hotel, I discovered an alternate route. Rather than walk downriver to the alley, I could stroll through an ashram just in front of the marble steps. The ashram's central pathway ran parallel to the alley and was, I soon discovered, much cleaner. The alley was the typical Indian gauntlet of cows, dogs, homeless people, and all their waste, bodily and otherwise. The ashram, on the other hand, was sparkling clean and reminded me of the children's area at Disneyland. Enormous blue statues of Shiva and Krishna filled the pathways. Out of another huge Shiva statue, a fountain of water flowed from the goddess Ganga, poised above Shiva's matted hair. Luscious gardens with flowers of many colors lined the central pathway, broken only by a host of life-size depictions of gods, goddesses, and scenes from Hindu scriptures. As I learned later, when tasked with writing about the statues for a visitor's guide, one is the half-man, half-lion Narasimha avatar of Vishnu, killing the demon king Hiranyakashipu with devoted Prahlad looking on. Another is Mother Yashoda, seeing the universe in the open mouth of her young son, Bhagawan Krishna. Yet another is Saint Raidas, with his chest cut open to expose his heart, upon which lie the sacred threads. If I had been in a small boat touring the ashram, the tune of "It's a Small World" would have been perfectly in place here, seemingly. The ashram became my pathway between the hotel and the banks of the Ganga. A walk I took several times a day, rushing out of the hotel early each morning and inevitably having to return to use the restroom at least a few times before Jim came, my husband, to get me after sunset. One day, as I walked through the ashram, I heard a clear, stable voice, a man's voice, saying, "You must stay here." I looked around to see who had spoken, but the pathway was empty. I looked up, and there was no one on the balconies above. If the voice had come from the central gardens, it would have had to be a shout, not the gentle voice I had just heard. No one had spoken. If no one was around, there couldn't have been a voice, I reasoned. I must have imagined it, so I kept walking. 30 seconds later, I heard it again. A soft, calm male voice, as though spoken by a gentleman in the seat next to me on a plane or train. "You must stay here." Again I looked, and the pathway and balcony were still empty. Meditative though I had become, I was sure I hadn't lost my common sense. Clearly, if there was a voice, there had to be a speaker. If there was no speaker, there was no voice. The only people who heard voices were schizophrenics and Joan of Arc. My experiences, since I had first laid eyes on Ganga, had been expansive and whole, not the fragmentation of schizophrenia. I was not delusional. Yet, if I wasn't delusional, and I wasn't Joan of Arc, who had spoken? No one was there, so no one had spoken. I could not have heard a voice. Then I heard another voice, recognizably my own. It said, speaking in the authoritative, commanding second person to which I was accustomed, "You are about to ignore a very strong sign. You are about to pretend that you didn't hear a voice just because it doesn't make sense. You are free to do that, but it is a violation of your vow to keep your heart open. You promised you would keep your heart open to any signs of why you came to India. You promised that if you couldn't keep your heart open, you would leave." The eternal reproach continued. "So if you are going to pretend that you didn't hear a voice, you must go back to Delhi and get on a flight home to San Francisco. You cannot break your own vow." I was not in the mood to navigate a return trip to Delhi or to leave India yet. Along with the ecstasy, I was fighting a cold. I had therefore one choice. Conceding to my own ultimatum, I walked off the central pathway and onto a smaller pathway in the Parmarth Niketan the Parmarth Niketan Ashram toward a large sign with office painted on it in English. "I would like to stay here," I told the man behind the counter. He and 3 other gentlemen sat cross-legged on a thin mattress behind a low wooden desk. He did not respond. He just looked at me. "Excuse me. I would like to please stay here," I repeated, slower and louder, careful to enunciate my words. He continued to stare at me. Was I actually speaking? Were my lips making sound? Or was I imagining this as well? "Is it possible? Can I stay here? How much does it cost?" He continued, just to stare at me. Not the kind of lascivious stare that makes you feel naked. He just stared as though it were too much trouble to move his eyes away. He clearly had no intention of responding. I turned to the other 2 men. They immediately busied themselves shuffling papers from one side of the deck to the other. "Excuse me, please," I tried again. "Can I please stay here?" One of the paper-shuffling men rose and returned a moment later with a 4th man who spoke to me in English. "You want to stay here?" he asked. "Yes, please," I gasped, grateful for someone who spoke at all, and doubly grateful it was English. Doubly grateful it was English. "There is nothing for you here," he responded, matter-of-factly. "All of our programs are in Hindi. Even the yoga classes are in Hindi. There is nothing in English. Also, you must get up early in the morning for the 5 o'clock prayer ceremony, and that is also in Hindi. You should go to the ashram down the road. They have classes in English." "Oh, thank you so much." I walked quickly out of the ashram, excited to tell Jim and my husband that I had found a place with classes in English, and equally pleased to ignore the implication of the mysterious voice I had heard. When we arrived in the ashram further downriver, I immediately felt repelled. This was not where I was supposed to be. They did have a full day's activities in English, yoga, meditation, philosophy, but I needed to get back to Parmarth Niketan. The voice had become a rope pulling me back. I hurried back to Parmarth Niketan and pleaded with the man in the office who spoke English. "I will get up at any time that you say. I will sit through whatever you say I need to sit through. Whether I understand it or not, it doesn't matter. I just want to stay here. Please. Actually, he replied, we do not have the authority. You are a girl, and you are a foreigner. You can only stay here with permission from our president. Okay, great. No problem. Please let me meet the president so I can ask him. Actually, he is out of town. Oh, I replied, my heart sinking a bit. When will he return? Maybe tomorrow, the tall man replied. Great. I will come back tomorrow. I had not read the section in the India guidebook that explains that people in India, and especially in the service class, will tell you whatever they think you want to hear. Truth is less important than goodwill, and the highest goal is to keep you happy. Is my faucet fixed? Oh yes, ma'am, the faucet is fixed. You're happy to hear this news, so his goal is accomplished. However, what he hasn't taken into consideration is how short-lived your happiness will be when you discover that actually, no, the faucet has not been fixed and your bathroom is flooded. So, when the gentleman in the office said, maybe tomorrow, I took it to mean, maybe tomorrow, not recognizing that it really meant, I have no idea. For the next many days, I returned to ask, is he here yet? Not yet, was the daily reply. Maybe tomorrow. Thus we conclude Chapter 7. Thank you for listening. Let us explore Chapter 8 in our next reading session. Namaste. So, dear Sādhvi has now decided she is staying here by the direction of a mysterious voice that she did not expect to hear. In the same way she didn't expect to have a miraculous spiritual awakening all of a sudden in the river Ganga. He is awaiting the possibility of meeting with this president to stay in an ashram that does not offer English. Probably does not have many other fellow female nor foreigner participants. How exciting. I look forward to discovering what happens. Sky Guardian, you ask, can we read Chapter 8? Maybe tomorrow? Well, I usually plan on doing a reading at the end of my live streams too. But if you can't make that, there's always the recordings, which, as you know, I upload to our YouTube channel. Mischief, thank you for your friendship necklace and rose that you sent while we read. Om Saraswati Namaha. You need to know what happens next. Says Jennifer, you'll be back tomorrow. Well, I'm happy to hear that this book has been one that captures your attention. Yes, you are funny, dear Sky Guardian. I was about to say, you are dear funny, Sky Guardian. Now we may open our Sangha up to discuss whatever is on our hearts and minds, as my attention has really returned wholeheartedly to the comment section. I'm happy to hear that. You find this music to be so relaxing, dear permanent toothpaste. What's it called? I can give you the title. It's called Connect to the Akashic Field. 5 Hertz Deep Theta Binaural Beat Meditation and Deep Sleep Music from the Sacred Frequency Music. I'm sure that it's copyrighted, and when I post it on YouTube, there'll be a big disclaimer in the description that says, this video uses music from this channel, which is good because then you can just click on that link and you'll be able to find it exactly. Hello, dear Arjuna. Hello, Brooke. What we doing? Just being humans in our humany stuff and humany ways. Dear Jay, you ask if the leaves are changing color out where they live. They are. And my heart breaks as it does every year to say goodbye to all of the lovely plants. They begin to prepare for the night of winter. Nonetheless, also it's very relieving to transition into a new phase of our weather and life. Feels like many possibilities are opening up. I'm also grateful to live in a place where a lot of the plants do stay green all year round, but a lot of them lose their leaves and change colors. That's true, dear Brooke. Most mushrooms come out in the fall, and there's a lot of them out here, so many different kinds. It's actually one of my favorite times to go hiking in the forest. You just go, wow, look at that mushroom, and this one, this fungi. They just come out of the trees, and every now and then you find this grove that's like the sanctuary of millions, and I literally mean millions of mushrooms, and you wonder, where have I just walking into? That happened last year with my mother. I was talking about how biologists believe before plants took over the continents, there were forests of fungi, great monoliths of various kinds of mycelium structures and whatnot. And then as soon as we turned the corner, boom, it was like we walked into a simulation of what that was like however many billions of years ago. And I had felt as though the mushrooms themselves had made themselves visible for us at that moment. Thank you, dear Echo Leaf, for your quartet of roses. Tat Sat. Stop Darker, thank you for your heart meteor. Trees around you, dear Scott, are starting to turn. Dr. Ginny, you're wondering, how's Tulasi? She is leaving her body, to put it in dramatic terms. Yeah, I think she has had as much of a life as she can in this Canadian climate, and I have certainly done my best to ensure that she live as happy as she can, given what's possible out here. I imagine that she was probably the biggest and longest living Tulasi plant. But I look forward to the possibility of nurturing another one next year. Dear Solaris, you ask, what's my favorite color? Whichever one I'm currently looking at, I love. You are right, dear John James. There was a time in which the trees would just pile up after they die, and there weren't decomposers yet to break down all of that lignin. But even before that, there was a period in which the fungi ruled the earth, and They come from a kingdom of life that arose even before the first plants. There's beautiful art of what that's like, of towering spires of these multicellular organisms. It definitely looks like an alien planet. I would recommend checking it out. Dear Mihina, I have already taken dear Tulasi inside, and that has, I think, extended her lifetime. Several weeks, at the very least. Sky Guardian, you share that other than Sanskrit, you don't think I have any likes. It's not that I have no likes, it's that I have only likes. That there's nothing I dislike, you know? To me, there's something joyful about every color, uniquely so. And I'd feel terrible if I picked out any of them as my favorite. I would feel like a parent who had decided, this child is my favorite. Because then, as long as I'm with my less favorite child, so many things wrong there. Now, I'm not as happy because I'm not with my favorite child. Now, my favorite child isn't as happy because clearly I am not allowing them to express themselves to the same extent that is able to connect with my heart. I think colors too. They're like children. They're pure, expressive. It would break my heart to pick one as my favorite, because then the moment I'm with a different color, I would feel less happy. And then I would feel sad for the colors that they're not able to make me as happy as my favorite. Therefore, I try to find a way to love every color equally. Not just colors, but whenever there is a diversity of life before me, the moment I pick anything as my favorite, I become sad. So I hope that everything makes me as happy as can be. Welcome back, dear Marlin, and hello, Stripe. My day has been well. Thank you for asking. How has your day been, Till? You let me know. I try to go live every night, dear Brooke. Dear Hybrid Jen, you ask if I got your email of the mala you made. I don't think I checked my email today. Thank you for reminding me. I will have a look as soon as I have a chance, but how lovely you got to make a mala. I love that for you. Dear Angela, you ask, do I believe the spirit of a deceased person can communicate with us? Many people share their experience of connecting with someone who had passed away. I may not share such a direct experience as those accounts, but even if I have not experienced them, I believe that those experiences were genuinely healing, regardless of what mechanism you might chalk it up to be. I know that personally, it is absolutely possible for you to feel like you've received this message, maybe in your dreams, as has happened for me and my grandfather, for example, who passed away. And there is absolutely an evolution of a relationship that continues after one's death. It's just no longer physical. That's all. but it's not my place to invalidate anyone who says that it is possible because they've experienced it. I know that your experiences are valid, and anything is possible. Dear Peter, thank you for your trio of roses too. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dear Sky Guardian, you are asking about some edge cases to my favoritism, or lack thereof. If my mom is there and a random mom is there, would I like the stranger mom equally? You share, you mean I guess I wouldn't want the stranger mom to feel bad. That's one aspect of it. But, well, the reason that I try to love all colors equally is that I get to experience them equally. But in this life, it's clear that I get to experience one mother more than another, and so that makes it extra special in that case. But that's not because I've decided this mother is my favorite. It's because that she is a part of my experience more than any other. But in the ways that other mothers are part of my experience, I hope to value their motherhood as much as I can, given my association with them. Dear Mahina, you share that the changing trees during the seasons in the winter, it looks dead, but it's alive, maybe a hint. Unfortunately, I'm quite sure that Tulasi is not just losing her leaves, but dying because her branches have lost all life and she's turned rock solid. I'm not aware of plants that are able to rehydrate their dried out and breaking limbs, which is the extent of Tulasi's decay, unfortunately. And I did some pruning, and the inside is just, it's hard as wood. No life flows through the veins of that branch anymore. So I don't think leaves would grow back. But yes, it is something that I hope to keep in mind. Not all of her limbs have died yet, but she doesn't have any leaves anymore, so I don't know how she's gonna photosynthesize. Maybe she'll go to sleep soon, but otherwise, I will have to say goodbye. Dear Scotty, you ask, how long have I been a part of the LGBTQIA plus community? For eternity, as we all have been. Because by definition, it is an inclusive community, which means no one is left out. That's why there is an A that stands for allies and a plus that stands for everyone else. Everyone is part of it, always and forever. I'm happy you enjoyed that video with me and my mom, dear Shadow Wolf. I thought that it would provide a unique experience to see what I look like when I'm climbing a tree and whatnot. Since I know that it can be limiting to just see me in one way every day. Dear Stripe, you share that your hamster is slowing down. You are scared that when he dies, he will not show himself. Ooh. It's good to check up on him then, I suppose. Unfortunately, hamsters don't live that long compared to us humans, but we can provide them as lovely as a life as we can, given their time with us. I had a hamster once. His name was Blackberry, as a pun on the name berry, but also because he was so sweet, like fruit. Loved eating blackberries, and he was also with black fur. Blackberry. And he passed away while he was sleeping, and I didn't know. I thought he was just sleeping until one day I decided to check on him, and no, he had passed away in his little home. I'm glad I checked. Your hamster's name is Ziggy. I like that name for a hamster. Stripe, you try to check on him so much, and you get upset when you don't see him. I love how much empathy you have for your dear hamster. Wonderful. And that's right, dear Solaris. In any way I can make use of her branches, I will certainly make a mala. Atmama, see you ask what chakra day is today. Well, I consider Friday to be Third Eye Friday, because it's the 6th day of the week, and the third eye is the 6th of the 7 chakra system. Dear Hybrid Jen, you share that a guy came and girdled your tree stump. It then got attacked by termites, and they took it over, and you were very emotional because you were praying and it was working, and when you stopped praying it died. How much love is in your heart, so much so that you pray for the new life of a tree stump. That kind of heart is the one that I wish to see in the world. Thank you for having one, dear Deanna. Your late partner planted that tree. Well, every part of that tree is compostable, and I am sure that it shall be used to create lots of life. Perhaps in faraway places that we might not get to see. Maybe your prayers were answered, just in a different way. But I am sorry for your loss, both of your late partner and that tree. Thank you, Gandalf, for your hanging lights, your hearts, your flowers, your quintet of donuts, and your quintet of friendship necklaces. Hari Om Tat Sat. Very kind of you, dear Gandalf. Murated es oficial. Thank you for your presence here and for your present of a rose. Radhe Radhe. 2:57 p.m. Thank you for your rose too. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. And Mahina, thank you for your paper crane. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. Dear Ryan, you ask if I see a difference between prayer and magic. Prayer is certainly a magical time. And I suppose magic too can be seen as a form of prayer, since it invites curiosity. It allows a space of wonder. I think that each expression of magic is a prayer to the universe. And each prayer to the universe is an expression of magic indeed. Dear Tatvamasi, you share that you wish you could get a feel of the ecosystem in your garden, where they know everybody else. At a branch and they gossip. I imagine they do. Oh, if trees could talk, my mother always says. I watched this beautiful video of this Sikh man who was explaining how I think we take our left hand because it's closest to our heart and we put it on the tree and we stay there for a few minutes. And you can ask the tree questions and it'll answer. Maybe you'll have to try it out. Gandalf, you ask, what was that mantra I sang? It sounded familiar. For you? I don't recall. I do have many that I share. If you remember what it sounded like, I can tell you. Thank you, Chronic. Tatvamasi, you share that they are so bhakta. They can give and give and give, and we take and take. You know the story of the giving tree? It's a beautiful one indeed. In that giving tree, it offers fruit, shade, shelter, wood, and then finally, when it has given up all its wood, just a seat to sit on. It's a very sad story. I remember reading it when I was very young and being so heartbroken over this tree. I would give and give and give. It reminds me of my mother. She is having some challenging times with her health past week. And yet she woke up today really early and decided that she was going to go to work. And I'm impressed that she lasted as long as she did, but only after 2 hours she had to go home. She was passing out. But that's my mother, and I'm proud to be her son. That even when her body is saying no, her mind says yes. What a beautiful wish, dear Asad. I wish all is well with all our mothers. I wish this too. Dear Chronic, you ask, what do I think of acceptance versus happiness, peace versus joy? When we put any two things between this word versus, it's easy to begin to point out differences. But for as long as we are pointing out differences, can we ever be accepting, happy, peaceful, or joyful? What? Had a funny inflection, didn't it? What are the similarities between these things? How is happiness and acceptance related? How is joy and peace related? In what ways can we find the unity? Long as we are looking for this, then all of these things, I'm sure, will be made possible. Yes, such a beautiful mantra, dear Sky Guardian. That's one of my favorite. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings in all worlds be happy. User 158, you share that you are a light bearer, and you ask who I am. To you, the bearer of light, may I be a prism. May I refract your light in all of its colors and share it back with all of you. Dear Angela, thank you for your rose. Arion Tat Sat. And dear Scott, thank you for your rose too. Hare Krishna. Dear Carrie King, thank you for your rose as well. Radhe Radhe. Thank you for so much lovely energy directed towards my mother. I am sure that she would be too stubborn to accept it and say, no, take care of yourself. I'll be fine. I hope to be more like my mother too, dear Honey Bunny Official. Thank you, Mahina. Hello, Fad Noor. And I like that 257. Peace is found once you stop searching for it. And how is that possible? The seeker is not the sought. Dear Chronic, you mean more to ask, feeling acceptance above happiness as an idea. You apologize for definitely misspeaking, and you expressed yourself wonderfully. I am just having some fun with wordplay. Happiness is a word that is very difficult to define, because for one person it may mean getting the chance to see your children play. For another it may mean getting that $1,000,000. For a third it could be taking a walk with your best friend, playing your favorite video game, taking care of a garden. Happiness comes in many forms. Regardless of the form that happiness takes for you, I believe that acceptance must be there in order for anything to be recognized as happiness. One cannot be happy without a kind of resolve that this moment is okay, or in this moment I am okay. Long as there's a kind of resistance to what is, how can we find our happiness here? Good night, dear Sky Guardian. Yes, I wish you too best of the present moment. Where is that from? Asks Permanent Toothpaste. That mantra, I imagine it comes from the Vedas somewhere, since it's written in Sanskrit, the language of the Vedas. It's a common saying in Vedantic teachings, especially, and many other schools of Indian philosophy. Thank you, Permanent Toothpaste, for the rose you sent to. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. And Gabriella, thank you for your heart me as well. Om Ganapataye Namaha. Dear Sarah, you ask, how would I describe my evolution? Beautifully heartbreaking. Or heartbreakingly beautiful. Indigo, you asked, what is happiness to me? For me, right now, in this moment, happiness means to be there for somebody. In this moment, the happiest part of my life, the purpose of being there for you. What an honor it is to coexist with people like you. This universe did not have to be so merciful as to grant me the ability to learn from you, to be able to share even a single moment together as a part of one whole universe. That makes me happy. I am grateful for that. And thank you, 2:57 p.m. for the heart me and rose you sent to. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dear Rainbolt Mom, thank you for your hand hearts. Here's some for you too. Jai Sita Ram. Roxy, thank you for the heart me you sent too. Om Kurling Kalikai Namaha. And that's right, dear Echo Leaf. Nobody needs me to be there for them, but I need to be there for you. The need is within me. That is my dharma, my duty. In the same way that nothing of this world needs our help, but everything about us compels us to be of help. That is necessary for our expression of truth. Thank you, dear Indigo. Thank you, Hybrid Jen, for your Cordetta Rosas. We plant a good garden here, I think. With the virtual flowers, but more importantly, with our human flowers. What I love about the Buddhist Thich Nhat Hanh is how he speaks of flowers. He had said that wherever I go, I try to make myself into a bouquet of flowers. I let my smile be the first flower I offer. I put my hands like a flower and offer them to you. I let each open eye able to see you to be a flower. I offer each flower of my ears to you. I let my whole body be a bouquet of flowers that I offer to you. Thank you, Wanda, for your tiny. Yahoo! Hi, Bridget, you share that your babies have a calmer mom thanks to me. Thank your children for inspiring the possibility of calmness in you. As I think that's one of the most miraculously selfless part of children, is that they offer us the possibility of being more patient, because Lord knows we need it. But truly, the challenges that are trademarked by children, indicative of growing up, in many ways that's exactly what a parent needs in order for them to become more of a deeply empathetic, trusting, non-judgmental, affirming person, etc. It is like a divine exam given to us through our children. Somewhere deep down at the level of their soul, they know what they're doing. They want attention, not because they're desperate for it, but because they know that it's a gift to offer you the ability to reconnect with your inner child, to take the attention away from all the problems of the world and just focus on the possibilities that exist in this young human being. And I know that mothers and fathers and guardians of all kinds that take advantage of that completely shapes the way they are as people. And you can never see the world the same way. Or rather, they help you see the world the same way that they do, the same way that we did. At that age. Gabriella, thank you for the heart me you sent to. Radhe Krishna. And Wanda, thank you for your flowers. Did I thank you for that? I think I did, along with the tiny. Still rings in my heart as an unexpected gift, but always appreciated. And David, thank you for the heart me and bare finger hearts that you sent to. Om Namo Rudraya. Why don't we read another adage of wisdom? Speaking of Thich Nhat Hanh and the Buddhists, I have a good feeling about the next verse. Let's explore it. The next of the 108 Adages of Wisdom by Master Sheng Yen on protecting the spiritual environment is: do not compare yourself against some standard. Do not compare yourself with others. Just be diligent in the present and be prepared at any time for the future. It comes with this comic of, looks like a boy standing on top of a bucket in between two people who are carrying what appears to be trophies. And he's saying, opportunities may come at any time. I have to be prepared. And he's got his hand in his air, empowering himself, and another hand on his chest. He knows what he's capable of. He just has no idea when those capabilities may have a chance of being expressed. So he's on high alert for any time he is able to express those sides which the world so deserves to see. The same is true for you. Thank you for listening. I like these little passages. I think they add a little flavor to an otherwise monolithic live stream. Though we cover so many topics, it can be nice to explore such words of wisdom. But what a great reminder. It's not our duty to compare with others. We can learn from others. Standards are there. Show you what is possible. But the possibilities for you might lead you on a different path, and your journey is so unique. How can it possibly compare to anyone else's arbitrarily? And I like what you wrote about children, dear Wanda, that they, as we can, embrace life and are curious about life. I think that's one of the most miraculous parts about childhood, is that we know less about the world than we do now. And yet, children are fully accepting of that mystery. They are mystified, and there is an urge to understand, but on no timeline. Just what is there before them to understand in this moment, however small or simple it may be, is enough to satisfy them. Dear Dr. Ginny, you ask, have I seen the documentary on Fred Rogers, Won't You Be My Neighbor? I have not. Is that the same Mr. Rogers? I imagine so. I would love to learn about such a person. I heard he was good all around, not just on television, but in his personal life too. have to keep it in mind. I have been watching documentaries lately. I enjoy them. Thank you, Broke Gumbler, for the rose you had shared too. What is a gumbler? I know what a gambler is, but a gumbler? Someone who goes up to those gumball machines, are constantly putting money into the gumball machines, cranking it, hoping that one day we'll be able to find that one gumball that just gives us enough sweetness that we'll never need another one. That's a gumbler. Angela, you had asked, could I please explain how Hinduism views non-traditional forms of sexuality or gender diversity? Very interesting question. As with any discussion on Hinduism, it's important to point out that it is a vast array of different belief systems. It just so happens that there is a kind of unity amongst those different systems, that they're all happily allowed to be a part of this greater whole we call Hinduism. I think that's amazing. As such, you'll find a variety of opinions on this matter. And just like you may have some very conservative views in Western religion, there are many branches that presumably refer to the strict conformity to tradition. But Hinduism is also unique in that it has many forms that completely evade tradition, like Tantra, for example. In Tantric Hinduism, almost anything goes. You can find someone doing anything with a spiritual connotation. For better or for worse. Sometimes it's hard to tell. But in the Vedic scriptures, which is one of the harmonizing features of the whole diaspora of Hinduism, there is this idea that the self is beyond gender, beyond sexuality, and that is the truth of their scriptures. They call that self the Atma, and that Atma is very explicitly said to be beyond gender, beyond sexuality. As such, if the goal is to realize one's Atma, called Atma realization, then the goal is to discover that aspect of yourself which is beyond gender, beyond sexuality, and only liberated beings can be said to be truly beyond gender, beyond sexuality. Thus, the enlightened beings of Hinduism, they are naturally beings who are asexual, non-binary. They have a body, and they accept it, but they understand themselves to be beyond it. And I will add to that, you can find a spiritual lesson in every expression of life. You can find the feminine in the masculine in the feminine. I think that in many ways it's true that love is an eternal bond between what we call the masculine and feminine, but that exists omnipresently in everyone and everywhere. So that bond can happen between two people of the same sex. And even at that level, it's not to say that one person is the masculine and one person is the feminine. It's that these two complementary forces of creation, between any two people, they find a kind of connection each. And at that point, I don't think it matters what kind of body you have for the other person. as long as it's consensual. It's only up to them. And may they discover the truth of their being as they walk the path of life together. Additionally, too, sexuality is not considered a sin. It is considered the energy of creation. But that it's possible to use this energy for greater things as it climbs through the chakras, for example, from the Svadhisthana chakra into the solar plexus, the heart, throat, third eye, and crown. We can use that very same energy for something else. These are some of the areas in which I think Hinduism may have views on sexuality and gender. But it's by far imperfect still, and as a society, as a culture, we continue to learn, and our traditions will continue to adapt to what we learn and value. And I look forward to that evolution of our understanding of these things too. Thank you, Hybrid Jen, for your half a dozen TGIFs. Ariom Tat Sat, and your octet of roses. Gary King, thank you for your tiny. Yippee. Renvox, you ask, do I know if mathematics is ever discussed in these old texts? I think there is a lot of mathematics, but not written down in the form of equations, since that syntax came much later in our history. There was this very early mathematician whose name is escaping me, but I think it will come to me. And Pingala is his name. Pingala was writing mantras. He was a composer in this sacred language of Sanskrit. He was composing mantras. And mantras have something called a chandra, which is a meter, a poetic meter, which has heavy and light syllables. As a fun side fact, the word heavy in Sanskrit is guru. Nowadays we use that term to describe a spiritual teacher, but the heavy syllables of a poem are called the guru syllables, which is very fun to know. Anyway, he was considering the combinatorics of all possible mantras. He was wondering, how many combinations of heavy and light syllables could you have in a mantra of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. syllables? And this opened the door for discovering the Fibonacci sequence, thousands of years before Fibonacci, Pascal's triangle, thousands of years before Pascal, and binary, thousands of years before the contemporary of Isaac Newton, whom I forget his name, who is also accredited to discovering calculus, Leibniz. And so there are some ancient scriptures where you can see Pascal's triangle, binary, Fibonacci, and he describes the formula. And this all came because of a devotional practice of making mantras, and he was just curious about that sort of thing. And then it happened to be rediscovered thousands of years ago during a renaissance of mathematics in Europe. And I think it was only recently that someone looked back into these scriptures and thought, wait a second, this Pingala guy had these formula already. He did a lot of other stuff. For example, he was the first known user of the number 0, because he was considering the light syllables like zeros and the heavy syllables like ones, and so he's playing with the ones and zeros. Thank Thank you, dear Carrie King, for your tiny. Yippee! Dear David, thank you for your friendship necklace. And tiny as well. Angela, thank you for your friendship necklace. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. I'm a little behind on some of the wonderful questions that were asked. James had asked what my opinion is on when asked who created God. I like that question a lot because especially in the West we use the term creator as a synonym for God. So we ask, who created the creator? Oh, what a beautiful philosophical question that is. One of my favorite answers that I've heard is from Osho. And he had a way of kind of having fun with these big philosophical questions. He would say, atheists believe that the universe had no creator, that it just kind of created itself. And theists believe that God had no creator and kind of created himself. And he was saying, these idiots don't realize that they're talking about the same damn thing. It's just on one hand you're calling it God, and on the other hand you're calling it the universe. And I love the way he just made fun of people for not seeing it that way. But I won't do that. But he had a point, which is that at some point there must be the uncreated one. And even if it goes back in time forever, you could ask, where did that eternity come from? At some point in our questioning, we must reach the answer that no, it is self-existent. Its nature is not made up of any prior nature. It is the initial existence itself. So, whether you want to call that initial existence God or not is a personal choice. But it's a profound question, isn't it? To think about that which is beyond creation. What I love about these questions is that they open our mind. Forget about the answer. Just the profundity of that question. What an amazing concept. What a huge, vast concept. Love that. Thank you, dear David, for another pair of tiny tinies from you. Yippee! And dear brave Bella, thank you for your finger heart. Hari Om Tat Sat. Risk Breaker, you had asked, what's the implication of these teachings, do I reckon? I think the context in which that question was asked, we were just talking about mathematics in ancient scripture. To me, the implication is that when we feel like we've got everything figured out for the first time, there is room for humility in that ancient humans were capable of realizing all the same truths that we have available today. Many of them did. Few of them wrote it down, and of those few texts, some remain. Every now and then we discover some of those revelations, and that opens up our worldview again to be able to incorporate perspective we hadn't previously considered. But specifically about Pingala's findings, clearly he discovered that the dance between ones and zeros is incredibly powerful in its representative abilities. The simplest proof of such we have today is our digital age, which relies almost entirely on the dance between these bits of on and off, yes and no, truth and untruth. To think that this ancient poet was thinking about all the different combinations of ones and zeros that could be made long before the first computers were made is just incredible to me. Renvox, thank you for your ice cream cone too. Arium Tatsat, and thank you for your moderation, dear Dr. Jenny. Gotta love the old on and offs. Dear Cody Jane, you ask, where can I learn more about Hindu spirituality? I think the place that most people start is in listening to the stories. Not just the stories from their corpus, but also the stories of modern day spiritual people who were awakened to this beautiful and ancient set of traditions of the East. You know, find yourself some great being whom has so many stories that you could spend a whole night just watching videos and whatnot, and enjoy the stories. Maybe you will want to hear about Ram Das and his guru, the Blanket Baba, Neem Karoli Baba. Maybe you want to hear about Paramahansa Yogananda or his guru. Maybe you want to continue listening to Sādhvi Bhagawati Saraswati in Hollywood, the Himalayas, that we've been reading. There is such a variety of places for you to explore. It's truly impossible for one person. Even the scriptures itself, it is said, would take 400 years to read them all. That's incredible to me. Now, size isn't everything, I will admit. But the variety of experiences that you can have from all of the perspectives of this spirituality is really mystifying for me. Funny enough, the reason that the scriptures are so vast is one of the qualifications for how you know when you've met, this realized master. Because if they can cite any verse from any scripture, that must mean that there is more than just this life, because it would be impossible for them to know all that within a single lifetime. I think that's a really cool idea. Welcome back, dear Georgia. Dear Tattvamasi, you share that Unfortunately, you would highly discourage the Puranas and Smritis. Why is that? I think they are of great value. In fact, I would encourage them much more than reading Upanishads or Vedas directly, because that requires a qualified teacher. But these stories are immediately accessible for their allegories and metaphors, as long as you know that they are supposed to be symbolic more than historical. That's all that matters. Enigmagan, I appreciate your apology. I understand. I recognize that many people here may have experienced religious trauma, and I hope to keep this space free from any sort of triggers for that. Of course, people are always welcome to share the beauty of something that makes sense to them. I'm really inspired by how powerful of an experience many people have had in their faiths and their religions, and I would love for this to be a space where you feel comfortable sharing that regardless. But when it becomes exclusive, as if my experience is one that's true above yours, this is where I am grateful to have moderators and the ability to set boundaries, because at that point, it's no longer an inclusive space. So let us ensure an inclusive space and share what's true for us, and be curious about what's true for others too. Thank you, dear Ron, for the heart me you sent too. Hari Om Tat Sat. And David, thank you for your finger heart. Jaya Sitaram. Dear Robbie, you ask if I have a definition for spirituality. Yes, my definition is whatever makes sense to you, because regardless of what it means to me, my only duty is to understand you. Spirit can mean many things, but in each of them, it is unique to the subject of an individual's experience. Incidentally, that's what spirit means, the subject of our experience. It's naturally going to be subjective by all definitions, therefore. Thank you for stopping by to share your love, dear Grillweed. Medium rare, you share that something that makes sense to you is curiosity. I love that. And how meta. Because curiosity is kind of nonsensical, literally speaking. It means going beyond what your senses tell you. So if it makes sense to you to be curious, you must have a very refined sense. A sixth sense, perhaps. A sense that comes not from what you see, hear, taste, smell, or touch, but a sense of belonging from the inside out. And what a great observation, dear Enigmagon. And the universe rewards curiosity the most. That is true. Thank you guys, Sardachak, for your heart me. And Wanda, thank you for your friendship necklace. Sum Suryaya Namaha. Tattvamasi, you share that the Manusmriti, for example, talks about putting a molten rod into Shudras on certain acts, and that by itself is a division. The mention of Shudras and no one else is the division, or besides the molten rod thingy. Well, I'm not here to convince you to read them, that's not my goal, only to be open to reading from them. When I say read, I don't mean believe, because even if it's a text that speaks to division, it's a history that we should be aware of, and there's still teachings that can be found in how we feel about what we're reading, how we look at the world differently today than they did at the time. It's for this reason especially that I encourage being curious about these texts. No one is saying you have to read them, and especially not believe in them. But so many great spiritual lessons also exist alongside those stories. You just have to be like someone eating trail mix. You don't have to eat the raisins. If you have enough dexterity, you can even pick out just the M&Ms. But just because there's raisins along with the M&Ms doesn't mean you have to throw out the whole trail mix. Just remember, from the very Puranas we get that story of an ant that's small enough to separate the crystals of sugar from the crystals of salt. Whereas when we make ourselves to be so big, how can we, with our giant hands, be able to separate the sugar from the salt? We would just throw it away. Therefore, with an amount of refining our viveka, discrimination between asatya and satya, just like the ant, we are able to pull apart the sugar from the salt. Lilimor, thank you for your heart me. From Hanumate Namaha. And Hybrid Jen, thank you for your septet of music plays. Kamalir Maha Kalikaye Namaha. And that's right, dear angel. And then when we throw it out, then the ants will come and do the work separating it. Good night, dear Dr. Ginny. But I hear you, Tattvamasi. And you speak to a solemn point, which is that just because it is ancient or included with other corpuses, that doesn't necessarily mean that we should treat it equally. And I appreciate above all else your empathy for those who have been shunned in previous times and still today due to, for example, caste discrimination. And it's true that there's no place for that in modern society. I believe because that term that we said for the lower caste has been used in a derogatory sense, a new term, maybe you've heard of it, has come into existence, which ideally is more free from the negative association, and that's Dalit, D-A-L-I-T. May we be aware of all of the humanitarian efforts that are bringing the stigmatization of being a part of a Dalit family into the light and allowing more people to be seen as equal. And I know that deeply empathetic beings like yourself will be exactly what the world needs to be able to make that a reality. Dear Solaris, you ask, if you melted both salt and sugar in water, would they bind or separate when the water evaporates? What an interesting question. Well, at the molecular level, I'm not sure what happens. I'm not sure. I know that because sugar is a covalent molecule, there's almost nothing you can do to break that apart. But salt, being sodium and chlorine, they're only bonded ionically. And so as soon as the salt crystals get dissolved in water, those ions get separated. And ions, especially sodium and chlorine, bind with everything. I wonder if it binds the sugar molecules. I wonder, I kind of doubt it. But there is a clever way of separating them through their densities, hydrology. This is really using the intellect. We don't have the hands to be able to pick apart molecule by molecule, but maybe through some clever use of hydrodynamics and chemistry, we can pick them apart. And that is exactly what that ancient metaphor is pointing to. Dear Renvox, you ask, would I know how to remain positive for your close friends in Ukraine? You talk to them every day. I suppose my question would be, what is making it hard not to be? If I may guess the answer to that question, it would be because you're hearing so much tragedy that it begins to weigh on you too. Is that right? And if that's the case, then to me, that means that actually you are doing something really good, which is empathizing with that. You can't expect to be there for someone who's going through something difficult without holding space for that difficulty. So you can definitely allow yourself to feel that. That's in many ways what it means to be a good friend. We don't have to try to solve their problems, but just affirm, this is how you're feeling. Be moved by that. And with that, I am sure that your friend will naturally feel like a little bit of the weight that they carry is now off their shoulders. But having a balance with something else in your life, where just in the same way, that friend has someone supportive for you in a better place. There's someone in your life that's in a perhaps even better place than you are, maybe mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And how can we use our network to balance all this weight across each other as humans. I think that's our duty, is to empathize with each other. I hope that you have associations in your life that can provide just the same for you too. Sometimes you feel very powerless in their situations. Yeah, that makes sense. Especially when the conflict so large is disproportionately beyond any individual's control, except for maybe the leaders behind it. But you don't have to have that power to be able to empower them. You don't have to have the power to end a war or to heal all the broken hearts. Just by empowering your friend in little ways is in many ways more than enough. The more that could be expected of you. And in the process, that empowers you too, because you discover just how much love you are able to provide from afar. Us humans are largely misunderstood. But it doesn't take a lot to feel understood. I hope you are empowered in knowing that as much as you can be there, that is enough. And how wonderful is it that we live in a time that you can be so supportive to someone who's so close to a conflict physically. Almost in real time, we can send our love and words of affirmation. If we can't go there physically, just knowing that they're not alone can be so helpful. Isabella, thank you for your TGIF. Your quintet of them, actually. Hari Om Tat Sat. There are 7 of them in all different cities. Sounds like your love is making its way all around Ukraine then. It's very beautiful. Atwamasi, can you hear once again why I don't call myself a Hindu? The same reason I don't call myself anything in particular is because my religion is my humanity. I have so much love for Hindu traditions, but not so exclusively that I wouldn't include myself in other traditions around the world. It might seem like I draw, perhaps, largely from Hindu traditions here, which is definitely true. But that's also because there's so much to explore about Hinduism. It just so happens that we refer to so many different forms under one umbrella term as Hinduism. But actually, I feel like even within Hinduism, I'm exploring so many different religions and traditions. Traditions, definitely. So, when it comes to the amount of traditions in the world, I try to draw from them as equally as I can. It just so happens that so many of those traditions are unified in the East that it seems like one whole tradition which is greater than the others. It just so happens that there are thousands of traditions in and around India, and there are many other traditions outside there, but not as many that are so, in my opinion, unified that they'd call each other brothers and sisters, even if their belief system seems to be largely different on the surface. I hope that makes sense. That's a logistical answer for you. Combinatorically, of the many traditions I'm familiar with, chances are it's probably one that could be considered Hindu. And thank you, Lilimor, for your octet of roses. And dear Tattvamasi, for your quintet of them. Instead of saying victory to Nisargadatta Maharaj, allow me on your behalf to send a prayer to all of the traditions around the world and its teachers. May they all express a truth which resonates with you. Hello, all divine mays. That's very funny, Guy Sardajak. I can say that I am not a religion. I like that answer. Love that, dear Solaris. Love is my religion. Hello, Dansuela. Margoth. You can tell me if you have a preferred way for me to say your name. You asked, how do you find happiness / positivity when you're going through a difficult time and struggle? I love this question because the answer is so simple that it's hard to say. You know, some things are like that, where once you see it, it becomes so obvious. But it's almost so obvious that you wouldn't even expect to look there. So even if I'm pointing directly at it, you go, what? Behind it? It's only natural that when we feel like we're in a negative situation, that it's hard to be positive. But from a very simple point of view, one which is only easy to overcomplicate, negativity is the very source of positivity. In other words, the challenges in life are what should inspire us to be happy. And I hope it's almost funny how simple that is. That when we're faced with the opportunity to engage with life, even if that engagement, especially if that engagement puts us out of our element, our comfort zone, especially if there are ways in which we can become stronger, more patient, more empathetic, then the adversity of life can bring out the best in us. It's just that on one hand, it feels like negative situations limit us. But on this other hand, those limitations are what channel our ability to transcend our circumstance. To say, I am going to do my best because this world is challenging me to do so. I am going to be happy because I see how much more happiness there could be. I am going to be positive because there's so much negativity around me. When we flip our view of positivity and negativity in that way, it becomes so painfully obvious, but yet so relieving, because that's the key to salvation. If we want to experience a kind of eternal peace, we have to think outside of the box. Maybe the real peace we're after is not a place beyond suffering, but a place in which that suffering becomes empowering for you to make a difference, such that the peace that comes from within is your resource to be able to attend to the lack of peace without. And I think that's why, for example, Jesus said in the Bible, "The kingdom of heaven is within you." Therefore, it is up to us to take that slice of heaven, which is already there on the inside, and use that to make the outside a mirror to that heavenly peace within. So may the challenges that face us in life be the mirrors that we require in order to see the reflection of what's possible within. Thus we say in the Lord's Prayer, "May thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And if that heaven is already within, and everything that can be done for goodness, for love and peace is already within you too, we are just given a chance to manifest that without. There, we were talking about how I draw from Hinduism a little more than others. There's a good biblical adage for you. Thank you, Angela, for the rose you sent just a few minutes ago too. Hari Om Tat Stat. Tat Stat. That's not a word. At least no Sanskrit word I'm familiar with. Tat Sat. Meaning that truth. Dove Darker. Thank you for your heart, me. Ram Ram. And Hybrid Jen. Thank you for Rosie the Rose Bean. I'm noticing there's a bunch of different beans there. I've been gifted a sweet bean. I think there might have been a smart bean. There's Rosie the Rose Bean. This must be something new. And we were just talking about all the different kinds of beans yesterday. Thank you, dear Hybrid Jen. Hare Krishna. Hi Sarda Chak. Thank you for your team bracelet too. Ram Ram. I'm sorry to hear that, dear Javi. to experience the loss of our partner in life and a source of security is nothing I'd wish on anyone. I am responding to your comment kind of late, but if you're still here, I'd be happy to explore what that's like for you. This is certainly a space in which I hope you feel allowed to express how you're feeling. And for everyone too, I echo that sentiment. Especially if what you're feeling is difficult. There's an expectation that in a public space that you should put on a happy face. But this is an expectation I hope to drop in this live stream. If you are struggling, let that be known. But that requires a kind of vulnerability that I won't expect of you either. Yes, I like the way you put that, Tattvamasi. The key to salvation is a change in perspective, really. Tattvamasi. I like imagining perspectives as perfect geometric objects that you can't see because they're what allow you to see, but they have a kind of invisible shape to them. They have a structure. Sometimes that structure is forged by a great master perspective maker. I believe all of the great spiritual masters that have come before us, they were engineers, not of the physical world, but of perception itself. They were able to engineer such a subtle form of conscious awareness that through that we are able to see this world from a new perspective than before. I think, yes, perspectives can be like keys, very literally, in that they unlock so much more. An invisible star shape, shares Solaris. You'd love to see the star shapes of concepts. Me too. Our perspective is very much shaped by the world, but our world is also shaped by our perspective too. And therefore, I think in little and big ways, what we see around us also tells us about the shape of our perspective too. Thank you for sharing that possibility, dear Hypergen. You found grief support groups on Facebook to be good for your healing. It's a community you post anything related to your grief. I love that idea. Because often within communities, we feel like we should come together and have fun. But there's room for communities where we can come together and be sad. Let us be sad together as much as we are happy together. Dear Mina, you ask, what does it say about your perspective that your room is very messy? Your room being the way it is says nothing about your perspective, but the fact that you found it messy tells us a lot more. That means that you are perceptive of a kind of order that could be, and perhaps along with that, a little judgment of the disorderly nature of the way you conduct yourself presently. Catherine, you share, but Yam, being sad is corny. Well, if it's corny, then why do we hide that corn behind these husks? We can't appreciate the sweetness of corn if we do not take these layers off. If we are to enjoy it, we need to bring it out from hiding. And don't forget that everything we do is corny. Human beings are goofballs in everything that they feel. But there's nothing wrong with that. And I like what you wrote, Mina. To cringe is to be free. Yeah, that could be your mantra. Dear Isabella, you share that corn, it has the juice. Is that so? Can you make juice out of corn? It never occurred to me. Suppose you can make a juice out of anything if you're feeling like you want to squish hard enough. Imagine it'd be very hard to squeeze the liquid out of corn. I don't know, I've never tried. Add that to my bucket list. Dear Mina, you share that your mantra these days is accept what you cannot change and change what you cannot accept. Oh, that's powerful. That's a good variation of the Serenity Prayer, which was my grandfather's favorite. It's got the juice, shares Angel, and you can't imagine a more wonderful thing. Well, now I've really got to try it. What is wonderful to you may be wonderful to me. Now, I just looked at the time. It is getting a little late. And I stayed up way too late last night. In fact, I didn't even go to bed until maybe 10 in the morning. So I'm definitely going to try to end things a little sooner tonight. So I would like to begin to wrap up our live stream tonight. However, there are some things I'd like to explore with you. For instance, my question of the day is something I wanted to reflect back on you. And today I wonder, what are some ways of letting go of less healthy desires? I'm particularly interested in the process, in the journey of finding fulfillment in one thing and seeing how we can go beyond that, lest we limit ourselves. Gary King, thank you for your trio of roses too. Om Sarasvati Namaha. Cody Jane, you rightly say, by delving into positive outlets instead. finding more healthy desires, shares Isabella. Healthy desires justifies Tatvamasi, who asks, what are they? I like the usage of binding versus non-binding desires that Swami Taratmanandaji said, as expressed by Sky Guardian when we asked it at the beginning of our live stream today. And go from a desire that binds us to one that does not bind us, or by extension, other people in our life. Rianan, you share replacement of it with a healthier habit, perhaps. I like that. Solaris, you share finding a more noble version to replace them, because everything is baby steps. Yeah, I love how you all point to a similar idea so far, which is where there is something that we could want less of. Incidentally, that invites room for something that we could have more of, thus filling a negativity with a positivity. Relatively so. I'm happy to have you here regardless of what time you joined, dear Talim. Dear Donsuela, you add, by allowing consistency, not perfection, in replacing a less healthy habit with one that is healthy, eventually it will become replaced without a sense of failure or self-sabotage. How beautiful. I like how you point to the eventuality and the consistency, which speak to the journey, the process. Dear Tatvamasi, you share the Vedantic approach, realizing that any desire is just an immediate construct of the mind and could change in a blink, perhaps even without control. Like that. Don't take our own mental construct so seriously. I like your affirmation, Guy Sardachak. Everything is going to work out. Cody Jane, oh, I really like you added this. Observing them without judgment. Ironically, one of the biggest reasons that we continue in perhaps unhealthy desires is the stigmatization of them. One might expect that if we were more critical, more judgmental about them, then we would do it less. Which might logically make sense if it weren't for the opposite being true. That through acceptance, validation, and understanding, we feel less of a need to pursue them. Marjen, thank you for your rose dough. Om Kring Kalikaye Namaha. Jay, you share. You've had to accept and welcome some suffering to let go of unhealthy habits and desires. What a great observation that is too. That even if we replace it with a healthier habit, that transition is often going to be challenging. And the reason why we might find fulfillment in some desire is to mask some suffering that we've been avoiding. Yeah. dark nightmares. You share that you are peaceful, you are successful, you are abundant. These are great affirmations. I'll put them in the first person too. I am peaceful, I am successful, I am abundant. I like that. Lori Lotz, you wonder about my story. Well, you have 22 years. That's how long it takes to tell it. So far. English is my first and presently only language, but you're welcome to explore parts of my story and relationship with language and expression in the frequently asked questions page in the link tree in my bio. I think I sat down and put a lot of thought into an answer there that I might not be able to give in full here. I hope you find your answer satisfied there in any way that I can continue to answer questions. You're welcome to ask follow-up. So, thank you for exploring this question of the day with me, everyone. I'm honored to know so many people, indirectly, who have such wisdom, especially in this case, surrounding the nature of desires. I love how we pointed out, replace them with something higher, more healthy, to accept that that's where that we are without judgment, recognize that it's a journey that is going to have ups and downs, and we have to be willing to be a little bit uncomfortable to take the next step out of our comfort zone. That ultimately these things are constructs of our minds and are subject to change. Tattvamasi, you add, if you see false as false, it goes away without effort. And Mahina, you share that when you let go of something less healthy, it's fulfilled by something else far greater. I like that, validating that the need within it can be expressed in something greater. Thank you, everyone. The penultimate thing I'd like to do with you all is begin the next chapter of Hollywood to Himalayas as we explore our author Sādhvi Bhagawati Saraswati's journey from eating disorders, depression as a child, to getting a PhD in some branch of psychology along with her husband, and now having this seemingly spontaneous spiritual awakening in India when it was her husband who went for a spiritual journey and she was just along for the ride. Suddenly she can't help but be next to Mother Ganga, the holy river, and ask if she can attend this ashram, this place of spiritual hermitage. Let's keep exploring her journey together. Now we are in chapter 8 called Surrender to the Divine. He's here! He's here! He's here! Pratap rushed toward me, breaking the silence of the bustling central pathway at the ashram. Breathless, my new and only friend grabbed my hand. Come meet him! Come meet him! I had long since given up waiting for the phantom president to arrive, which would potentially allow me to stay at this ashram, known as Parmarth Niketan, which is the largest ashram in Rishikesh, one of the holiest cities in India, and one of the largest spiritual institutions there too. The man at the front desk of the Green Hotel provided me with all the details I wanted about this magical place, with life-sized statues and disembodied voices. He told me they have more than 1,000 rooms. And I can't even get one, I wondered. Plus a wide range of spiritual, charitable, and humanitarian programs. It's the most famous ashram, he said. clearly impressed and proud to be in such close proximity. So, I figured the people working in the office must have had more important things to do than field questions from a teary-eyed American woman twice a day. They clearly did not want me to stay, but were too polite to tell me. I assumed that to avoid hurting my feelings. They must have simply invented a phantom higher authority who would never arrive. They knew I'd eventually go away and they wouldn't have to insult me by telling me I wasn't welcome. The office staff was simply employing, as I had learned by then, the socially acceptable solution of white lies to avoid upsetting someone. I decided to stop harassing them and turn the focus of my wonder elsewhere. Inside me, movie music was playing non-stop. Not the hit tunes you sing inside for decades, but the wordless music that announces, "It's about to happen." You don't know what it is, but instinctively you reach out to hold the hand of the next person, or tighten your jaw. When I heard that voice at Parmarth Niketan, I felt it was there. But with the men in the office thwarting my path, I decided it would probably come from the mountains. So, my husband Jim and I were headed to the mountains the following morning, on a 5 o'clock luxury bus that would, barring breakdowns, landslides, avalanches, road closures, or other seemingly inevitable hurdles, arrive in the sacred town of Badrinath by nightfall. We had planned to leave that day, Monday, September 23rd. It wasn't too long ago. However, after an ecstatic music concert at a local music teacher's home the night before, we sat on the banks of Ganga, the moon hanging low, holding us in her glow. Suddenly, instinctively, I suggested, "Let's go Tuesday instead of tomorrow." Why? I spoke the words before I even thought them. Mountains have always been my refuge. Every spiritual experience I had prior to coming to India took place melting in the wet earth beneath huge redwood trees, or hiking alone through high-altitude pine forests as my breath merged with the the alpine air. And I felt my existence merge with the mountains. Mountains were my vacation of choice, whether for a day trip for several weeks. Whether for a day trip or for several weeks. So, heading from Rishikesh to the mountains was natural for me. To postpone a departure, though, was unprecedented. Yet, I just said it. Jim agreed easily. He would take another day of yoga and philosophy classes at the nearby center. The ecstatic tears that streamed down my face, now nearly constant prisms through which I saw a world of rainbows, carried away the self-doubt to which I'd grown accustomed as a teenager. The power of whatever had grabbed hold of me, whatever had thrust me into this experience of bliss, was one I trusted. Now, Monday morning, as I walked back from the steps of the Ganga through Parmarth toward the hotel for a quick bathroom break, my new friend, Pratap, saw me from the temple where he sat. A retired professional from Maharashtra, a large state in western India. He spent several months a year at the ashram doing seva, or selfless service. The service given to him was to sit in the temple at the place where people passed after having darshan, viewing, beholding presence of the deities. As Sarasvati describes, a Hindu tradition that refers to seeing and being seen by the divine, typically in the form of deities in temples. Pratap's responsibility was to hand everyone a bag of prasad, blessed food, in this case puffed rice. With thousands of visitors per day, it was no seva for the lazy. Pratap's English was impeccable, and I had discovered him earlier in the week as I roamed through the ashram, pining to stay. I began to visit him daily, sitting on the ground in front of his low desk, on which were piled bags and bags of the holy blessed rice. I listened to him expound on the nature of the universe. How beautiful. I'm going to continue reading. I just have to turn my alarm off on my phone. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I cut out my microphone for a second. Got that back. Back to the story. The universe being revealed with puffed rice. As he handed the prasad to pilgrims, Pratap talked about God. Prayer is like a broom which sweeps out your heart, he told me one day. I had never heard anyone speak about prayer other than in jokes that typically began with, "So, there was a priest, a rabbi, and a minister." Pratap was not concerned by the tears pouring from my eyes or the seeming incoherence with which I tried to explain my experience. As I stumbled for words, he smiled knowingly. You have seen Ganga Maya, the mother goddess Ganga. You are very blessed." He had, according to Indian tradition, fulfilled his Grihastha Ashram phase of life, the householder stage. He had had a good job, had raised a family, and was now shifting into the Vanaprastha Ashram phase of moving away from the material world and toward a spiritual life. Later, should he follow tradition, he would further shift from Vanaprastha to Sannyas, the stage of full renunciation and dedication only to spiritual practice. Pratap had embraced the concept of life as something for which the highest goal is spiritual awareness and experience, and his conversations emphasized the mundane nature of the world. Pleasures come and go, he told me. You can never hold on to them. Their nature is to be fleeting. The only non-fleeting joy is in divine connection. Pratap knew I was waiting to meet the president. He also knew about the daily, maybe tomorrow answer I got from the office regarding the president's arrival. He didn't know I had given up waiting and was headed to the mountains. Why insult a man who had been so generous with his time and wisdom by telling him that I realized there was no president, that I knew his phantom higher authority had simply been invented so the office staff wouldn't have to tell me I couldn't stay? I had stopped asking, stopped expecting, and stopped waiting for my Indian Godot. I would simply leave. I knew something important was about to happen in my life. I could feel it in my breath, and I could hear it in the wind. I just didn't know where it would come from. So, on this Monday morning, as I walked back to the hotel to go to the bathroom, no longer stopping to inquire after the president, my friend Pratap, a man well into his 70s, came sprinting out of the temple onto the main ashram pathway, shouting, "He's here. He's here." In those days, the ashram president, Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswati ji, usually called Pujya Swamiji or Swamiji, met people twice a day for open darshan. Darshan means seeing the divine in Sanskrit, being seen by the divine, or divine sight. The word is used for beholding images of God in temples. For example, we are going to the temple for darshan. It can also pertain to sitting in the presence of an enlightened master who sees the divine in each person and encourages us to see ourselves as divine too. looking deeply through the eyes of an enlightened being, we have the opportunity to see the divine. On another level, darshan refers to any meeting with a saint. I'm having darshan with Pujya Swamiji tomorrow. In those days, Pujya Swamiji gave open darshan from 10:30 in the morning to 11:30 and from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. For someone off the street, as I was, these were the only times it was possible to see him. It was 10:45 when I walked through the ashram. As Pratap tugged me excitedly, he advised, "Be sure to do pranam when you meet him." "Do what?" I asked, suddenly nervous. I had planned only to ask permission to stay, which in itself had seemed pure fantasy, as I was sure he didn't exist. Now, surprisingly, I felt agitated. "You bow." Pranam means you bow very low on the ground. "I'll do whatever you do," I told him. "Just show me and I'll follow." I didn't know a thing about the president except that he got to decide whether I could stay. Now I was supposed to prostrate myself before him? I guessed he was more than a high-level administrator, quite possibly a religious figure. I was suddenly curious and still a bit nervous. When we reached the reception area, which was next door to the office where I'd been asking about his arrival, Pratap gently opened a screen door and motioned for me to walk in. The room was large and bare, save for a burnt orange carpet on which 30 or 40 people were sitting. Some were poor, others well-to-do. Some were professionals, others looked like they lived on the street. They all faced the front of the room, where, on a thin, saffron-colored cushion, sat the most beautiful man I have ever seen. Let's pause our reading of Hollywood to Himalayas there for now. So thank you for exploring this. In our next reading, we can explore the description of this most beautiful man, soon to be, perhaps, guru of our dear author, Sādhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, who clearly at the time of writing the book now carries the same spiritual last name. Thank you for listening. Namaste. I like to read at the beginning and end of each live stream, so I hope to see you tomorrow, as I like to do these every day, assuming I can. Otherwise, please check out the free recordings of this book, which I put on my YouTube channel, along with all other readings and meditations that we do. We're going to end the live stream with a short meditation. Just a moment, but first I must thank dear Charlie for the rose you had sent. Arion Tat Sat. And Hybrid Jen, thank you for your dozen roses. You're too sweet to me. I hardly feel as though I deserve your grace. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. Noisy Nerd, thank you for your heart, me too. Ram Ram. And dear Angela, for your rose, thank you too. Om Aing Sarasvati Namaha. And Lori Loz, thank you for your heart, me and team bracelet. Om Gange Namaha. I'm happy you enjoyed that reading. Today I wanted to end with a simple guided meditation. This meditation is very personal for me because it's one that I have often used and still do use almost every day. But it often didn't occur to me that it was a meditation, and I thought I'd share it with you too. This meditation is one that you can really do in any position, at any place, at any time, but it's much easier in a comfortable position which is quiet and free from a lot of sensual distraction. And by I mean the literal sense of that, in terms of objects appearing to our senses that may overstimulate us. I call it the heartbeat meditation. It wasn't so long ago, but now maybe 8 years, that I realized that the heartbeat you feel at the center of your chest, it can move. This heartbeat you can experience in a cut, when you cut yourself and you feel the blood flowing. You can hear it over your ear in your pillow when you're falling asleep. And consciously, we can bring it to each part of our body. And if you practice this, I've discovered it immediately brings a sense of peace, healing, and relaxation wherever it goes. But when I'm anxious, I bring my heartbeat into my tummy, and I feel my heartbeat there. When my leg is sore, I bring my heartbeat into my leg. When I have a headache, I bring my heartbeat to my elbow. I'm just kidding, my head. So I'd like to explore this heartbeat with you. We may start just by finding it in its place of residence. Perhaps by putting our hand over our heart and just feeling it beat. Just observe its natural rhythm. Maybe you can even hear it from within. Lub-dub of the atrials and ventricles expanding and contracting. Bring on all of that oxygenated blood throughout the body. The highway for so many nutrients and things that our cell needs. Sometimes the awareness of our heartbeat can bring anxiety, and I've felt that too. And I almost tried to avoid hearing my own heartbeat for years. Ever since I was a child, I was scared that it might stop. I carried a lot of anxiety in my heart. And with that, an over-awareness. Is it beating correctly? Did it just miss a beat? Is it too fast? Too slow? I would always be judging my heart. But you know, it's got its own business. You can bring love and acceptance to that heart. You're beating just as you know how in this moment. And we are aware that our breath is intimately tied. For a relaxed heart, we need relaxed breath still. And with each breath we take, let us imagine that heart expanding, both metaphorically, but also perceptually, and that our heartbeat begins to include the surrounding area. Let us feel like the Grinch and how the Grinch stole Christmas when his heart grew 3 times. As if that gentle vibration and reminder of life could be seemingly felt lower in the chest, as well as higher in the neck. Imagine your heartbeat between your collarbones, on your left side, on your right side. Feel that heart beating in the whole of your torso, like a body scan radiating from the heart. Let that heartbeat find its rhythm in your tummy, in your back, in your shoulders, maybe even down each arm. And you can stop to take extra time to feel your heartbeat somewhere that's sore or healing, or maybe is just associated with some trauma. Remember that as long as your heart is beating, some part of you is screaming, I want to be here. I want to be alive. I want to live. And that is the song of our heart. That song supersedes the darkness that this body has felt. And in each place we feel that heartbeat. We feel that rhythm of love begin its healing cadence. Let that love reverberate down each arm, to the wrists, palms of the hands, and maybe place your hand in a mudra, thumb touching the index finger. Feel the heartbeat in that little space that you squeeze between the 2 digits. Feel your heartbeat descend to your waist, hips. Feel the way there is a subtle bounce between what you're laying or sitting on or standing on and the heartbeat, as it creates a little bob of your whole body up and down. The bounce between that surface and your butt, body, or feet. Feel that heartbeat, all the veins, arteries, capillaries of your legs. Inside and out. Behind each kneecap and each calf. Feel that heartbeat dissolve tension. Relax your muscles. Entice healing. Imagine that heartbeat in your ankles, and the balls of your feet, and the soles, top of your foot, and the toes. At this point, we should be feeling or imagining the heartbeat everywhere below the neck. And finally, let's bring that heartbeat up into our throat, our neck, our traps, especially our spine. It climbs into our ears. Let us feel that heartbeat in our face, in our lips, in our nose, eyes, tongue. Let us feel that heartbeat in the whole of our head, and especially its crown. Feel that heartbeat in the whole of your body as a reminder that you are alive and that your body, no matter how damaged, is still working with each cell to give you a chance at living. We may permeate that space with gratitude. Miracle to have a pump that works for decades continuously, one that engineers are still learning from. And now that we feel the heartbeat in the whole of the body, we're not quite done, but we can take it one step further. And if you pay ever so close of an attention to that heartbeat, you can begin to feel it in everything around you. First, in whatever surface we are on, sending vibrations through the couch, bed, chair, floor, into the ground, such that if you had a precise enough instrument, you could put a stethoscope to the wall of your home and hear your heartbeat reverberate through it. Feel that heartbeat in the air around you. Feel it in the people in your home, in the ground, in the trees, in all of your favorite things, and the people outside. Let your heartbeat expand and contain the whole of your community, skies, water, wood, the cement. Let everything be a medium for your heartbeat to resonate. Let that heartbeat expand. Imagine it in the whole of your town, city, your heartbeat adding to the trillions of vibrations on the molecular, atomic, and quantum level, mixing in with all the other noise, but still carrying a distinct, personal component as your essence. That essence which permeates the whole universe. You are the heartbeat of the universe. You are the heartbeat of the universe. You are the heartbeat of the universe. And if you had your eyes closed like me, you can rub your palms together, creating friction, like you were going to start a fire. And once they're warm, you can place them over your eyes and blink while they're closed. Feel the warmth. Rub them. And blink until they're open. And you can thank your heart for providing you with a meditation. Namaste. That is the end of our meditation and the end of our Sangha. So, thank you for being here, everyone. May this live stream be an offering to that divinity within you. As I said, the meditations along with the readings and the whole of the live stream gets posted on my Yamsox Lives YouTube channel for archival purposes, as well as to provide you with more value out of the space we host nearly daily. I hope that it is something that you can make use of if you so wish. I'm not sure of the exact time in which I'll go live next, but I hope to go live just a little earlier than I did today, assuming I can get some good sleep tonight at a more appropriate time. But I'll shoot for some time in the afternoon or evening Pacific time. Maybe that means 5 hours ago relative to you tomorrow. Thank you, dear Hybrid Jen, for your trio of music plays and your paper crane. Jaya Hridaya Kasha. That means victory to the space of the heart in Sanskrit. Asatoma Satgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityormamritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you all for being here once again and for allowing me the opportunity to be here for you. May I continue to learn from you and all of my mistakes so that I may create a more inclusive tomorrow. And thank you to my moderators for helping ensure an inclusive and safe space. As always, too, if there's anything I couldn't have attended to on this live stream, you're welcome to contact me on other platforms like Instagram, Telegram, WhatsApp, or email. Which reminds me, I need to check out my email to see your lovely mala, dear Hybrid Jen. And I'll always get back to you as soon as I can. And if there is something you wish to share here, do check out the Show and Tell application in the link tree in my bio. It's all there. linktr.ee/YAMSOX. Yamsox. May you all have a wonderful rest of your present moment. Namaste.